Hello, people. How's it going? Well, I figured that now we have a new president, who's now the second president to not win consecutive terms of the White House. I thought I would talk about the first guy who was the non-consecutive president. Actually, this is a very good book. I first want to read a few things about his life. I think this is more interesting. Stephen Grover Cleveland. Yes, his first name was Stephen. Stephen Grover Cleveland, born March 18th, 1837, died June 24th, 1908, was the 22nd and 24th President of the United States, serving from 1885 to 1889 and from 1893 to 1897. He was the first Democrat to win the presidency after the Civil War. This is the first and only two presidents to be elected on consecutive terms, and we know who the other one is, much to the horror of some people. Oh, wait. You know, he's buried in Princeton Cemetery. His political party was the Democratic. Spouse was Frances Folsom. Children, including Ruth Esther Richard Francis, there were six. Ruth, of course, was his daughter who died young, who supposedly the baby Ruth bar is named after, but that might not be accurate. It might actually be George Herman Ruth, the Sultan of Swat. Occupation, lawyer, and politician. Cleveland was elected mayor of Buffalo in 1881 and governor of New York in 1882. While governor, he closely cooperated with the state assembly minority leader Theodore Roosevelt, which they did get along very well. And Roosevelt had a lot of good things to say about Cleveland and his general. Minority leader Roosevelt to pass reform measures, winning national attention. He led the Bourbon Democrats, a pro-business movement opposed to high tariffs, free silver, inflation, imperialism, and subsidies to businesses, farmers, and veterans. His crusade for political reform and fiscal conservatism, just like Teddy Roosevelt did, made him an icon for American conservatives of the time. Cleveland also won the praise for honesty, self-reliance, integrity, commitment to the principles of classical liberalism. This book does a very good job of describing a lot of this, all of it. This is an excellent book. Stop turning off. Where was I? After losing the 1888 election to Benjamin Harris, his fights against political corruption, patronage, and bossism convinced many like-minded Republicans called mugwumps to cross party lines and support him in the 1884 election. After losing the 1888 election to Benjamin Harrison, he moved to New York City and joined a law firm. The 1893 election restored him to the White House. As his second administration began, the Panic of 1893 sparked a severe national depression. Many voters blamed the Democrats for opening the way for Republicans' landslide in 1894 and for the agrarian and civil rights seizure of the Democratic Party in 1896. An anti-imperialist, Cleveland opposed the push to annex Hawaii, launched an investigation into the 1893 coup against Queen Liliuokalani, and called for her to be restored. Cleveland was a formidable policymaker, but also garnered criticism. He intervened in the 1894 Pullman strike to keep railroads moving, angered Illinois Democrats and labor unions nationwide. His support of the gold standard opposition to free silver alienated the agrarian wing of the Democrats. Critics complained that Cleveland had little imagination. As he overwhelmed by the nation's economic disasters, depressions, and strikes. In his second term, even so, his reputation for probity, and good character survived the troubles of his second term. Biographer Alan Nevins wrote in Grover Cleveland, the greatness lies in typical rather than unusual qualities. He had no endowments that thousands of men do have. He possessed honesty, courage, fairness, independence, common sense, but he possessed them to a degree other than men do. By the end of his second term, he was severely unpopular even among Democrats. After leaving the White House, Cleveland served as a trustee of Princeton University. He continued to voice his political views with Phil to jail in 1907, dying in 1908. Today, Cleveland is praised for honesty, integrity, adherence to his morals, Definitely defying party boundaries, and effective leadership is typical rank in the middle upper tier U.S. presidents. And I would put him there. I mean, this book really does a very good job of showing the influences in his life, the people he influenced. His father really influenced him a lot. His father was a Presbyterian minister, and they wanted him to go into the ministry that he wanted. He wanted to do other things. He can stop doing that now. He's machine computers, but they're useful. But no, I like this book. I mean, it really does show. It explains why he didn't want to go into the Civil War. So it says why he defended it. It explains his not so much. He was a carouser early in his youth. He was a carouser. He liked drinking. He liked eating. He was a big guy. He was girthy. But anyway, we moved to he lived in Buffalo. At that time, would have been more of a frontier town. But yeah, his dad was a Presbyterian minister, which is where he got a lot of his integrity ideas from, his philosophy about life from, how to do business, how to be a politician, how to be a lawyer. His father died young. He died at 49, if I remember correctly. I mean, Grover Cleveland was an interesting guy. He was, in a lot of ways, a Democrat version of Teddy Roosevelt when it came to political reform, policy reform, doing the right thing. If you'll notice, both of those men had fathers who really did guide them and really did influence them in positive ways. They got along with his family, just like Teddy did. They were a lot alike. They really were a lot alike, and they got along very well. I do like this one. It's been a while since I've read it, but I figure as we just had an election here in the United States of America, United, now we have another president who was elected twice, but not consecutively. I figured we might as well talk about this guy. I think it was interesting that Grover Cleveland is known primarily as the only president to be elected to two non-consecutive terms. But his record as a staunch reformer, which he was, he really wanted to reform the government system. It was, I mean, there was a lot of favoritism in this country when it came to government in some places, particularly New York. A lot of favoritism, a lot of buying and selling of votes. And you think it was bad now? It was almost as bad now. It really was. There's one reason why Teddy Roosevelt wasn't well liked, and it was the reason why he wasn't well liked by everybody. But anyway, his record as a staunch reformer is equally impressive, for fighting powerful bosses in both political parties and vetoing bills he considered raised on the Treasury for resisting American imperialism and robber barons alike. And when he became embroiled in a scandal from fathering a child out of wedlock, which he did, and evading the Civil War, he faced his past personally and confronted his demons directly. In graceful and enduring prose, Paul.Jeffers gives us the first full look at a president whose moral timber and courageous administration have more to say to today's more politicians, than perhaps any other leader in American history. The present man who just won the White House could learn a lot from him. Okay? I'm just saying. But he was the first Democrat elected since the Civil War. I like him. I like this book. I like the fact that he had such influences in his life, that he stood for what he believed in. He stood for his principles. He stood for what he had been taught throughout his life by his father and by the mentors in his life, by the people who guided him in his life. Teddy Roosevelt, I was going to find Roosevelt. That's Teddy, good old Teddy. Let's see. As a mayor of the city, as governor of his state, and twice as president, he showed singular powers as an administrator, coupled with entire devotion to the country's good, and a courage that quailed before no hostility once he was convinced where his duty lay. That was from Teddy Roosevelt by the Spittle at Grover Cleveland's funeral. He was. This is what a statesman should be. This is the kind of politician we need now. This is the problem is this person, he wouldn't survive. he would not survive in the modern world of politics. The kind of guy we need, the kind of politician we need, the kind of statesman we need, the kind of president we need. I mean, I'll take Cleveland. I'll take Cleveland over, well, actually, both of them, actually. But that stands now. But this book is excellent. I would recommend this book. If you want to talk about a man with a backbone, and believe me, he was not well liked by his own party sometimes. But he stood up for something. He stood up for what he believed in. He was a reformer. And believe me, American politics, and after the Civil War, and certainly after probably in the 1880s, 1890s, was just, well, as I said back here, finding powerful bosses in both political parties and vetoing bills he considered raise on the Treasury. He was the right man at the right time. It's a great book. I would recommend this book highly. I would recommend this book very, very highly. Very decent pictures. The only thing I don't like about this book is there are no real decent pictures of it. I mean, there are. But they do have a chronology in the back. They tell you, born Caldwell, New Jersey, March 18th, Stephen Grover. Appointed to the New York State Bar in 1859. 1862, elected ward supervisor. I'm just doing it here. 1865, defeated election for Erie County District Attorney. Elected mayor of Buffalo as a Democrat in 1881. He lived an interesting life. I like the guy. I'm sorry. If I had to pick probably my favorite Democrat of the presidencies, he would probably rank pretty high on my list. Democrats. I like this book. Read the book. You'll learn much. And this is the kind of president this country used to elect when we were not busy electing bad ones. But we did. A lot of them. But excellent book. He also wrote, by the way, Paul Devers also wrote a book on Teddy's son, Teddy Jr., who died in about a month after the Normandy campaign. Played by Henry Fonda in the movie Longest Day. But I don't think there was a movie they called Cleveland. But yeah, it's a good book. That's an excellent book. Excellent. Well, like, share, comment, subscribe. Give yourselves, people. Or I'll sick. We'll go over Cleveland on you. Or it'll sick me on you. I'm not going to name myself, but you need to. Later.